Most Indian families began their EB5 journey by looking at the projects first. They compare options, they ask about location, job creation, repayment and timelines, and then they say, we'll handle the source of funds later. It sounds reasonable, but in reality, that is often the wrong order. Because in EB5, your journey does not truly begin with the project. It begins with the source of funds. And if you get that order wrong, you can lose valuable time, delay your filing, miss the right project, and in some cases, even increase the risk of your child aging out. So today, let me explain why smart Indian EB5 families should begin with the source of funds first and only then move to project selection. My name is Paresh Karia. For over 2 decades, I have worked across banking, financial services, real estate, and investment migration. Over the years, I have advised many Indian families on both source of funds planning and project selection. And I can tell you this with complete clarity. Source of funds is not just a paperwork step. It is the foundation of your EB5 case. As a CA and banker-led advisory team, this is one of our strongest areas of specialization. And that is precisely why families trust us to guide them through the EB5 process in a structured and practical way. Now let us address the biggest misconception. Many investors believe this. Let us first find the right project. We can sort out the source of funds later. But that is not how it works in the real life. Here is what actually happens. First, source of funds usually takes far longer than people expect. It is not just a matter of collecting a few ITRs, bank statements, and CA certificates. This is only the starting point. Real source of fund work often involves tracing money over many years, explaining income trail, documenting gifts, loans, incomes, capital gains, etc., matching financial flows, resolving inconsistencies, and building a story that is clear, logical, and properly documented. And this doesn't happen in 2 or 3 days. In many cases, it takes weeks and sometimes even months. Second, while your source of fund is being prepared, the project you like may no longer be available. And this happens more often than people think. A family identifies a project, they feel comfortable, they want to move ahead, but by the time their documentation is ready, the project has filled up or the window has narrowed, and they are forced into a rushed second choice. And that is how people end up making weaker project decisions. Not because the project was bad, but because they were not ready when it mattered. Third, delay in source of fund means delay in filing. And in EB5, every delay has consequences. A delayed filing can affect your timing, your visa strategy, and your exposure to future backlogs and retrogression. When families tell me we'll do it later, what they often do not realize is this: later can become too late. And then there is the most sensitive issue of all, child aging out. If your child is already 18, 19 or 20, time matters even more, because every month lost in preparing source of funds is not just an administrative delay. It can put your child's eligibility at risk. At that stage, this is no longer about paperwork. It becomes emotional, it becomes urgent, and it becomes deeply personal. Now let us look at a smarter approach. When you start with your source of funds first, everything becomes stronger. Your case becomes clearer, your timelines are more predictable, and your project decision becomes faster and more confident. Here is what that looks like. 1. You understand your financial position clearly. You know exactly which funds are usable, which documents are available, which part needs explanation, and what, if anything, needs to be restructured in advance. 2. You avoid last-minute surprises. No panic, no scrambling, no discovering gaps after you have emotionally committed to a project. 3. When the right project is identified, you are ready to act. That puts you in a position of strength, not hesitation, not dependency, not delay. 4. You reduce risk. Risk of filing late, risk of missing project, risk of backlog exposure, and where relevant, risk of child aging out. 5. You move through EB5 with far greater confidence, because once your source of fund is ready, the rest of the process becomes far more efficient. So what is the right sequence? Very simply, it is this. Step 1. Begin with source of funds planning. Understand the source, map the documentation, identify the trail, and evaluate whether the file is clean, complete, and USCIS ready. Step 2. Prepare the documentation properly, not loosely, not casually, and not at the last minute. Prepare it in a way that it is structured, explained, and professionally defensible. Only then move to project evaluation. Now you can assess rural infrastructure or HUA projects properly. You can compare projects from a position of readiness. Now you can choose based on strategy and not pressure. Step 4. Once the project is selected, invest and file without delay. That is how smart families approach EB5, not reactively but strategically. EB5 is not just an investment decision, it is an immigration decision, a family decision, and in many cases, a time-sensitive decision. Projects will keep changing, visa conditions may evolve, processing timelines may move. But one thing you can control from the beginning is your source of funds readiness. And that is why the smartest families do not start with project. They start with the foundation. They start with the source of funds. If you want expert-led CA grade source of funds planning, if you want your financial story documented with the precision of a banker and a chartered accountant and an EB5 specialist combined, and if you want to ensure you'll never lose the right project because of SOF delays, then book a consultation using the link below. Let's structure your source of funds correctly, prepare your documents early, and build the strongest, safest EB5 strategy for your family.